Chapter 5. I was just about to come get you, says Grandpa Owl. Did you space out and forget what we went in the lab to get? Frank, standing empty-handed in the kitchen doorway, smiles. Toaster? Appliance that converts electrical energy into heat? Aluminum piece about this big? Grandpa Owl teases Frank. Don't worry about it. We can find it later. Listen, I have to drive the truck over to the other side of town and pick up some stuff from the old factory getting shut down. Idiots are dumping perfectly beautiful machines I'd like to save. Can you and your pal Watson man the shop for the morning while I'm gone? Oh, sure, says Frank, smiling. And I did forget the toaster, but you are never going to believe what I found. My truck keys? Guesses Grandpa Owl, shuffling around the kitchen, patting his baggy sweater pockets, looking around for his lost keys. The missing remote? No and no, says Frank. Let me introduce you to... Frank steps out of the doorway and waves a hand toward Clink and Clank. Grandpa Owl finishes his coffee in a quick gulp. That's great, Frank, but I don't really need the shop vac or the trash can right now. What I need are my keys. The shop vac's webcam eye dilates open and scans the kitchen. Keys are hanging from the nucleus of the carbon atom model. Ha! So they are, says Grandpa Owl, lifting his truck keys off the lamp. Put them right in the heart of carbon so I wouldn't forget. Thanks. Grandpa Owl freezes, then slowly looks back. What? Did the shop vac just... Frank laughs at Grandpa Owl's shocked look. Yes, he did, Grandpa Owl. Meet Clink, Einstein Laboratory's first self-assembled artificial intelligence. Clink wheels into the kitchen and shakes Grandpa Owl's hand. Very pleased to meet you, Mr. Einstein. Your E equals MC squared is most perceptive. Grandpa Owl holds his head in both hands, his eyes open wide in surprise. Wow, 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 wow. Are you kidding me? Clink turns his glass dome head. Do I look like I'm kidding you? Frank, you did it. You made your thinking robot. Well, not exactly, says Frank. It made itself. A stray spark triggered everything, but Clink here is a neural net self-teaching thinking robot. Grandpa Owl bends down to check out Clink. Very nice to meet you, Mr. Clink. I have to tell you, I am not that Einstein. But over the years, I have dabbled in a bit of physics. Clank clomps suddenly into the room, wrapping both Grandpa Owl and Clink in a big aluminum hose hug. Me too, says Clink. Love Owl Einstein. Love matter changed to energy. What the? Says Grandpa Owl, almost falling over. That's Clank, says Frank. More self-assembled artificial intelligence. Amazing, says Grandpa Owl, still wrapped in Clank's enthusiastic hug. And they get smarter and smarter by teaching themselves? One of us does, says Clink. Clank, stop hugging. Beep beep, beep beep, answers Clank happily in a polka 3 beat, wrapping his arms from Clink and Grandpa Owl. Clink reaches into his storage compartment. He pulls out the toaster pieces and calls up a repair diagram. In a whirl of exact motorized movements, Clink reassembles the toaster in 10 seconds flat. Grandpa Owl plugs in the machine and pushes the lever. The heating element hums on and quickly turns a bread toasting orange color. Beautiful, says Grandpa Owl. What else can you fellows do? Clink grabs the coffee can off the kitchen countertop. He squeezes the can in a crunch of ground coffee and crumpling metal. He shows off a ball of aluminum, steel, and zinc. Beautiful, yes, says Clink. Well, begins Grandpa Owl. We'll work on that, says Frank. Okay, Clink and Clank, let's go try some experiments out back. Grandpa Owl nods, but then goes strangely quiet. He peeks out the kitchen window and checks the downtown Midville street. Frank, he says, remember how we talked about some people using science to learn more about the world, and some people using science for power and money? Sure, says Frank. You are an amazing scientist, but you have to be careful. Other people out there might want to use your science and these robots for who knows what. You worry too much, Grandpa. Well, I've seen too much. I knew some of those guys who worked on splitting the atom. Grandpa Owl taps the bulbs at the center of the carbon atom light fixture. They figured out how to release massive amounts of power by shooting a neutron into an atom, splitting that atom into smaller atoms, and creating a chain reaction of neutrons, splitting more atoms and making crazy energy. Clink projects a diagram of a nuclear reaction. Yes, I can do that. No! Grandpa Owl grabs Clink's hand before he can start assembling anything. That's what I'm talking about. Firing that one teeny neutron into a large atom can make something helpful, like a power generating plant, but it can also create something incredibly destructive, like an atomic bomb. Clank volunteers. I can combine match heads and ammonia to make a stink bomb. Yes, no, says Frank and Grandpa Al at the same time. Oh, yes, he can, Clink reports. He simply mixes H2S plus 2NH3 into NH4-2S. Grandpa Al snatches away the matchbook Clank has pulled from a drawer. The science is good. It's the stink we don't want. I get it, Grandpa. We'll be careful. And we'll watch out for any suspicious-looking scientists, but this is going to be so big. Grandpa Al watches the two robots investigate the kitchen, taking in every detail. Well, you'll win the Midville Science Prize for sure when you show up with these guys. I thought about that, but I can't enter the robots. I didn't exactly make them. They made themselves. Frank thinks for a second. And anyway, I have a million more inventions they can help me build. Oh boy, says Clink in a more robotic voice than usual. I can hardly wait. Frank gives the smaller robot a look. Clink pretends he doesn't see Frank's raised eyebrows. Oh boy, says Clank. Okay, says Grandpa Al, not sounding at all convinced that anything is going to be okay. Just be careful. I'll pick up those machines and be back around noon. You and Watson will be okay until then. Watson, says Frank. I can't wait to see the look on Watson's face. Chapter 6. The look on Watson's face is pretty amazing. It's one part surprise, one part fear, a dash of smile, and a twist of disbelief. No way, says Watson. Watson slowly, his mouth open, his backpack still hanging off his shoulder. Working robots? Yes, working robots, says Frank, sitting on the picnic table in Grandpa Al's backyard junk pile, making notes in his lab notebook. Smart working robots. What's that little one doing with the batteries and skateboard? Building a magnetic levitation skateboard. The north and south pole of the magnets push against the other magnetic north and south poles and make the skateboard float. Amazing, says Watson. Frank nods. Okay, says Watson. Now that big one just stepped on the skateboard and smashed it to bits. Not so amazing. Don't worry, says Frank. All part of the plan. It's Watson's turn to nod. Which is why Shopvac guy is melting everything in that pile over there with a laser? Learning. Growing intelligence with experience. Identifying metals by their melting points, answers Frank. And why Trash Can Man is eating those nails and bicycle tires and VCR tapes and laughing? Frank makes another note. Okay, I'm not sure about that, but I wouldn't call them names if I were you. They're both kind of sensitive. Watson gives Frank his full-on crazy look. Really? He looks over at Clink melting a sledgehammer into a puddle of liquid metal. Impressive experiment in changing states of matter, Frank notes. Solid to liquid. Oh boy, says Watson, finally dropping his backpack to the ground. This reminds me of your electric shoes invention. A great idea until it was my shoes that melted. I can see this robot plan going even more terribly, and me losing something more than my shoes, like my arm, or my leg, or my head. Watson, you worry too much. Worry too much? I haven't even started to worry. What if those bots go crazy? What if they turn their smarts and powers against us? It happens all the time in robot movies. Frank makes another check in his notebook and closes it. Not a problem. Watch this. Clink, clank, come over here. The smaller robot puts down the ceiling fan he is examining. The bigger robot drops the car engine he is hefting, trips over a nest of old cables, and falls on a tricycle, completely flattening it. Both robots motor over to the picnic table. Clink and Clank, this is Watson. Say hello to Watson. Oh, for goodness sake, Clink says to Frank, you sound like you were talking to a half-wit puppy that just wet your rug. He turns to Watson. Hello, Watson. Hello to Watson, booms Clink. Frank pulls a book out of his lab coat and holds it up. Have you read this? Clink takes iRobot and one of his clamps. He flips through the pages, scanning them with his webcam. Now I have, he says, hands the book back to Frank. Clank? asks Frank. I have read X-Men, Guinness Book of World Records, and a Captain Underpants. Watson laughs. Really? Which one? Clank thinks, or tries to think. Frank and Watson hear something spinning hard inside Clank's perforated head. There's a small bing, and Clank shouts, "Ooh, the one with Professor Poopy Pants!" "Captain Underpants and the Perilous Plot of Professor Poopy Pants," says Watson. "That is a good one." "What?" says Frank. "Professor Poopy Pants is a misunderstood scientist and inventor," Watson explains. "Seriously?" Frank questions. "Yes, he really is," Clank confirms. "He invents a shrinking machine. It's the Shrinky Pig 2000. And he invents a growing machine, the Goosey Grow 4000. And he goes mad," asks Watson, "and turns evil because everyone makes fun of his name and ignores his brilliant inventions." "No, I mean, seriously, stop talking about Poopy Pants." "He also builds a very smart Gerbil Jogger 2000, adds Clank. "Stop!" yells Frank. "I'm trying to demonstrate something scientific here." "Right," says Clink. "What?" says Clank. Frank digs his hands into his lab coat pockets. "So, in I, Robot by Isaac Asimov, the 3 laws of robotics," begins Frank. Clink finishes Frank's sentence. "Are? Law 1. A robot cannot injure a human or let a human be injured by not helping. Law 2. A robot must obey orders from humans, though not if those orders break Law 1. And Law 3. A robot must protect its own life, as long as that does not break Law 1 or 2. "And do you, Clink and Clank, swear to always obey Asimov's 3 laws of robotics?" asked Frank. Clink's LED lights flashed blue and white. "What do you think we are? Simple machines? Of course we obey the 3 laws of robotics." "Yeah, geez," says Clank. "What do you think we are?" Clank copies Clink, sort of. "Tippy tinkle trousers? Of course we obey the 3 laws of robotics." Watson laughs. "Okay," says Frank. "Clink, please fire your heat laser at that doll." A beam of red light jets out of Clink's body. It instantly melts the creeping, smiling head of a junkyard doll into a smoking puddle of pink plastic goo. "Perfect!" Frank marks his notebook, gets up, and takes a couple of steps away from Watson. "Now do the same thing to Watson's head." Clink turns his laser. "Hey, what? No!" yells Watson, covering his head with both arms. "This is a terrible thing I said would happen." Clink shoots a beam of green light, targeting Watson's forehead. "No! Ah, hell! This feels great. What is that?" "Light energy manipulation of positive brainwaves I just invented," says Clink. Frank makes another note. "Clink!" Clink jumps in surprise. "What?" "Pick up that cast iron bathtub and smash yourself to bits with it." Clink clomps over to the bathtub, lifts it up over his head. He drops it right behind him. Laws 2, 1, and 3, Frank notes. "You didn't have to tell him to shoot me in the head," says Watson. "Nothing personal," says Frank with a slight smile, "but I figured if the experiment didn't work, better to lose you than me." Watson rubs his head. "If I wasn't so brainwave positive right now, I'd be really mad at you, but okay, this is amazing." Watson has a sudden thought. "And you will totally win the science prize with these guys as your project, if I don't win it with my peanut butter bubble gum." Frank shakes his head. "Nah, I don't want to win the prize with robots I didn't really make." He holds up his notebook and smiles. "I have to come up with something even bigger and crazier." Clank lights up. "Peanut butter double bubble gum." "Oh boy," adds Clank. Has to be really big," says Frank. "World-changing big." The cuckoo clock above the shop door flaps open. The little cuckoo bird pops out and crows, "Warning, warning, warning." "My newly wired motion detector," says Frank. "We've got visitors in the shop. Clink, clank, hide." "Warning, warning, warning," sings Frank's rewired cuckoo. "Warning, warning, warning."